go ahead, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead. Oh, you fancy, huh? Oh, you fancy, huh? Oh, you fancy, huh?
Hey guys, this is the first edition of a Fancy Conversation. I am your host, Sierra, better known as FanCEE, and I just want to say thank you for already tuning in. I want this segment of my YouTube channel to be dedicated to touching topics that everybody may not be talking about or are scared to talk about. Sometimes we have topics that we want to discuss with people but are in fear of judgment and people saying the wrong things that hurt our feelings or whatever. So I want to be that person who openly discusses whatever it is that you want to talk about. So on today's episode of A Fancy Conversation, I had someone submit to me a couple of questions revolving relationships, right? So in 2018, what does dating look like? Like, how do you meet people? What are some trends that you see going on in today's world or whatever? So I kind of want to touch bases on that today. But first off, I want to make sure that you like my channel, subscribe, share this video.
Oh, you fancy, huh? Nail done, hair done, everything did.
So one of the questions that I received was,
well, aren't you a breath of fresh air from all these superficial gold diggers in here? They
it's
get
weird because I just published a book in February called Cheers to Him. If you don't have it, check it out. You can find it on Amazon, and I'll drop the link below for you to buy it on my website. But I think that finding the strength to move on, you have to find the lesson that you've learned inside of that relationship. Let me say that again. When you experience a heartbreak, you have to find the lesson that you learned from that heartbreak. In my book, I actually talk about, I think, 10 heartbreaks that I experienced, and I moved on, and I'm still hopeful because I found the lesson in that. And it's hard sometimes to really see the value in the relationships that we experience, especially if we're holding on to somebody that we really want to be with. Sometimes people come into your life for a season and for a lesson, and you have to grasp that in order to move on. So think about the person that you are still holding on to, or that you felt like you were going to marry one day, for example. What is that person doing now? Is that person the type of person that you really saw yourself with for life? Yeah, I don't know about you, but I mean, I've had some pretty significant relationships where I thought I was gonna marry the guy, and I look at them now, and although most of the men that I dated are really good men, are actually married now, where we are in life right now are too different. So I can't imagine living life in that time, because at that point in time, that person hadn't grown. That person may not have been the person that they are today. So who we were then is not who we are now. So you have to be able to accept the fact that people change, people grow, and we have to learn the value in that relationship in that moment, because it doesn't stay the same. The person that you are when you were 18 years old isn't the same person that you are today. I'm 29, I'll be 30 in a couple weeks. Oh my gosh. And I am nowhere near mentally, emotionally, spiritually, anything like I was when I was 18, 19, or even this time last year. So we all have so much room to grow, and as long as you find the message and the lesson in that relationship that tore your heart apart, I promise you that you'll find the strength to move on. It may not take a day. It may not take months. It might even take years. I talk about the heartbreaks that I experienced even as a child in high school, my first love, and I'm like, dang, have I not moved on from this? But realizing that oh my gosh, you taught me the art of communication. You taught me what it meant to really care for somebody genuinely. And so I can take what I learned from you and I can apply it to my relationship, which is what we should be doing. We date for a purpose, right? So if you're dating for a purpose and something doesn't work out, there's a reason why it doesn't work out. So because it didn't work out, what are you going to do differently the next time you're in a relationship? Think about that. What are you going to do the next time that didn't work in your last relationship? And there lies the value in heartbreak. Because there's a lesson, there's something that you need to learn that you can take and apply to the next time. Another thing that I feel like we as people don't often do enough before we jump into a relationship is discover ourselves. We don't even know what we want. We don't even know what it is that we're looking for out of the relationship. So how is it possible for a relationship to flourish if you don't know who you are? If you've experienced heartbreak a number of times, maybe it's you. Which leads into the next question that I received. I would say from my own personal experience and what I have done would be, it's me. It's definitely me, because what happens is we get used to the same no good person's traits. And so when we see or we experience somebody who is outside of that realm, we run from it. I know for me personally, when I had the opportunity to date somebody who was different than what I had been used to, catering to my needs, would literally do whatever it took to make me happy without me even asking, which is what I was not used to, I ran from it. I claimed that I wasn't ready, but what it was is I was finally getting the commitment that I thought I wanted, but I wasn't used to it and I wasn't ready. I was young. I was just had moved out into my own place. And here I had this man who was pretty much ready for marriage. And because it was different than what I was used to with these previous guys who wanted to give me their time whenever they wanted to, or wanted to pick and choose when we were a thing or not, then that's what I attracted myself to. So the most of the men that I dated were in one way or another the same, with different lessons that I took from them, and they may have treated me different in some capacity, but at the end of the day, they weren't ready for a relationship and I was waiting for them to change. So what was I doing for myself? Nothing. I wasn't changing anything about myself. I wasn't asking for a relationship or a commitment. I wasn't asking for you to only be involved with me. I wasn't demanding time and energy and effort that I was pouring into that relationship like I wanted. Instead, I was just hoping things would change. And so when that change came from somebody who I didn't really recognize, because I didn't recognize that type of man, I ran from it. And so I think that as women, we do that. We tend to attract the same type of man because that's what we're used to. And when we get something that's different from that, we run away from it. So you have to see what it is that you want. You have to be able to say, okay, this is what I want. This is what I will allow. And this is what I won't. And when you do that, you're more confident in what you bring to the table as a woman, and also what you will not accept from a man. Don't lower your standards or don't lower your value as a woman because of what you have poured into a man for so long, and because you're hoping and wishing that one day he's gonna change. He will change when he's ready. And a lot of times we as women try to change men and we can't. A man will change when he's ready to change. And if he's not ready to change for you, move on. Move on. Stop allowing yourself to be consumed in relationships that add no value to your life. I promise you, I have experienced it myself, and I have been there, and I know what it's like to be there, to like feel stuck, and to want something so bad to work, and then it doesn't. And so now you have all this time and energy invested into a man, and it's not going anywhere. However, the positive thing that you can absorb out of that relationship is the lesson that he taught you. He may have taught you your worth. He may have taught you the value of communication. You won't leave a relationship empty-handed, I promise. Whether it's short-term or long-term, you should never, ever, ever leave a relationship empty-handed. You just have to process. You have to understand what that relationship brought to your life. Okay? So take that, think about it, think about where you're messing up as being the common denominator, because nothing is changing but the man. So you have to evaluate yourself and what yourself is doing, and how you are applying what you're applying and what you're taking to that relationship and what you're absorbing for that relationship. And if that relationship is not beneficial, and if it's not going in the direction that you want it to go, you need to evaluate yourself, you need to evaluate your desires, and you need to move on. Okay? So here's the next question, and the last question of the night, which I feel like is interesting as, yeah.
To walk in, but they go with the clutches. You carry your lip gloss in, and look, I really think nobody does it better. I love the way that you put it together.
Wow. So for me personally, I don't feel that way, but I think that it depends on what your love language is. I, in my experience, have been in a relationship with a man whose love language is physical touch. So if that's how they communicate and that's how they interpret love to be, then men can validate love sexually. And it doesn't have to be sexually. It could be physically. It could be just being near you, being attention hungry or whatever. But as a woman, I personally don't know a lot of women who validate sex in terms of love. That doesn't mean those women don't exist, because again, your love language plays a big part in how you love and how you interpret love. And if you're not familiar with the 5 love languages, I would definitely suggest checking that out. I'll drop the link in the comment box below so that you're able to take the quiz and see what your love language is. But for me, my love language is acts of service. I want you to do things that help me. So if I come home and there's dishes in the sink and you've been here for 5 hours and you haven't washed the dishes or put them in the dishwasher, that's aggravating to me. If you see a load of clothes that needs to be washed and you've been in the house, why can't you wash them? And for me, I have kids. And so helping out with the kids more than just a basic amount is very helpful for me. So for me, my love language is different from somebody who interprets physical touch, whether it's sexually or just being in somebody's presence. That's different. So I really think that aspect of it depends on the person. It depends on where, how they interpret love. And it's important that we understand those dynamics in order to let and allow a relationship to flourish, because we can't love people how we want to be loved. I'm gonna say that again. We cannot love people the way that we want to be loved, because that's not going to work. Unless somebody's love language is the same as yours, which 9 times out of 10 it's probably not going to be, you have to be willing to adjust how you interpret love to portray and give love the way that somebody else needs to be loved. So I hope that answered your question, and I hope that you've gotten some perspective from listening to this episode of a FanCEE conversation. I want to know what dating tips do you have in 2018? Because where do you meet people? I'm not a real social person. I'm not with the whole online dating thing, so I don't have any advice in that aspect. But where do you guys go to meet people, and what's your experience in 2018 with dating? Like, is it good? Is it bad? Y'all drop some comments below. Email me, message me on Instagram, Facebook, whatever. I want to know, because I have a lot of friends who have questions too, and I also have a lot of friends who are married. So for me, I'm in like a kind of between place, because I'm not married, but you know, I date, and it's like, what do I want to do? Like, do I really want to be married to somebody forever? That's definitely another conversation that I would love to talk about, because I feel like the dynamics of marriage have changed over the years, and so it makes it hard to even, for me, see myself married. However, that doesn't mean that it's not possible. That doesn't mean that it's not going to happen. Doesn't mean that I'm not hopeful for it. Definitely just not number one on my list right now. But I would love to know how you date and what's your experience with dating in today's world, especially with communication being so text message and social media. A lot of that stuff didn't factor in back in the day. Even, I mean, when I was in college, it was popular, but not as popular as it is now. And so I see a lot of issues arise because of social media and people not being able to effectively communicate and all that good stuff. So I definitely want to continue this topic again. I want more questions. I want more feedback so that I can answer them and get you guys' insight as well on RelationshipISH, because dating in 2018 ain't easy at all. And I hear this from so many people, and then you hear cheating and divorces and all this mess. And it's just like, okay, pause. There's something that can be right here, right? So again, drop your comments and questions below, and if you want to be anonymous, email me. I'll drop my email in the comment section below as well. Make sure you're following me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all of that good stuff, and stay tuned for more editions of A FanCEE Conversation, because this is only the beginning. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.
Beamer, champagne range, triple white Jag, closet full of brand new clothes and